Good evening, Jedi Knights and Sith Lords, and welcome to the second Star Wars Artifact show. I'm Dominic, aka Lord Doom. I'm with my friend Eric TBD, and tonight we're going to talk about the first three episodes of the Andor series. So we can't wait to talk to you about that series. I'm thrilled about what we've seen so far. But first, for those who missed our first show, we're going to talk about everything that Disney Plus will give us regarding the Star Wars universe. We're going to talk about the series, obviously the movies, whenever we get some, and we're going to talk also about the animated series. So that will cover our everything we will cover. And well, how are you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing okay. I'm doing a little better than last week, getting more used to the equipment and the streaming, I guess, world. So, little improvements, I guess, will be improving every week. So, I'm excited to get going with this episode. It's going to be a long one, but I mean, obviously, going forward, we'll just go to one episode and we'll be able to add a bit more extra content that's outside of the box. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but one thing we do have to probably mention is that this episode will be filled with plenty of spoilers. So just make sure that if you haven't watched the episodes 1 through 3 of Andor, that there will definitely be a lot of spoilers. So it would probably be a good idea if you didn't to turn it off, as much as I wouldn't want anyone to turn it off.
Yeah.
Probably turn it off now and watch this episode later on YouTube, so that you get the full experience.
All right. Well, everybody has been warned, so let's dig in right away and start with episode one.
All right, let's get this going here. So episode 1. So obviously, I mean, the Andor series was written, created, and co-directed by Tony Gilroy. And in episode 1, we begin on Morlana 1. It's a Preox Morlana corporate zone. It's 5 years before the Battle of Yavin. Is that how the abbreviation works? The Battle
Yeah,
of Okay.
yeah, BBY.
So let me just make sure my slideshow is working here. Basically, it starts with you guys see Cassian heading to what seems to be a red light district, and meets the hostess named Gani in the bar. There's two security guards that are there. Seem to be giving him a bit of a hard time, busting his chops, I guess. And he's looking for someone, talking to her, and what eventually is revealed to be his sister. It was a girl from Canary. It's a system in the mid rim, and so she tells him that this girl's no longer there. She's gone. It's been months. He's asking for her name, and she says, no one ever gives a real name there. So he ends up leaving the bar, and what we find out is, soon later he's followed by these two guys who are busting his chops in the bar, and one thing leads to another. They're obviously trying to shake him down, and he ends up defending himself, killing one of them in the process, and then he's stuck, I guess, in a tight situation where he's got to make a decision. As much as this guy's pleading for his life and trying to negotiate, saying, well, you know, well, we can make up a story, and this don't happen. I mean, ultimately, Cassian makes the choice that he needs to, and he ends up killing that guy in cold blood. So, and then we move on to the next scene. I'll let Dom continue with that one.
Yeah, and before we continue, we have a question on the chat from Guillaume Ludo, who asks us, "Did you get why the planet was called Canary?" Well, first off, you misspelled the name of the planet, but uh, no, I didn't. I hope it's not because the kids are dressed in yellow, like a yellow canary, but it shouldn't be. a factor in the name of the planet. But no, I
Uh,
didn't notice or figure out why it was called Canary.
Oh, there you go, reference. So it's a reference to the Canary miners. We're using the. Oh, I guess yeah,
Oh, that makes
yeah.
sense.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good point, Guillaume, for sure. And then in the series, we shift to Ferrix. Ferrix is in the same system, the Morlani system, and it's a free trade sector. So they have less presence of the security guards. They allow them to do their own thing as long as the end results are there and the production reports are satisfying. There's not such supervision on this planet. So this is why it's called a free trade sector. And we see for the first time B2MO, this beautiful red droid we're seeing on the screen. Uh, and what I like about that droid is that he stutters, but not because he stutters, because he has data lag. So that's pretty cool, and I can already relate to young kids who are stuttering, and it makes it cool. So that's something I really liked about that droid. And he sees Andor. Andor asks him to lie not once but twice about his whereabouts. And then he returns to his home, and on his way, there's like tree hugs that passes him by, and one of them, well, I guess we could have called it before in advance, but one of them stops and he starts peeing on the droid like he's a fire hydrant. So I thought it was kind of funny, funny attention. And then we uh, we get a first flashback. We see a young kid called Casa, and we immediately understand that it's Cassian when he was younger. And he interacts with a young girl that seems to be his sister. That's the one we're seeing right now. So, and all the kids and teenagers that lives in that little village uh, see a giant starship crashing in a not too far distance, and then, well, eventually they're going to decide to go explore that crash site. But I'm going to leave it like that for now. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Eric, who's going to continue the story with what's happening with Cassian.
Yeah. So then you go back to Morlana, one of the corporate security headquarters. Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn, who's played by Kyle Solar, reports the last night's event that happened. Obviously, the two security guards were, I guess, in his opinion, murdered. Obviously, it's a suspicion. He reports that to Inspector Hine, who's played by Rupert. I hope I don't mess this up. Vansittart. Previously, I think we've seen him on Game of Thrones. But it's a weird vibe because it looks like Karn is reporting something, doing his duty, and Hines is like, let's not even go there. Let's not report this. He's got a meeting with the Empire, and he doesn't want to talk about it. I think that they're mostly worried that they don't want to have the Empire start occupying this planet. And occupying, Dom, is the word I was looking for yesterday.
Mm, okay.
But yeah, so it doesn't want to have them occupying. You don't want them in your business, right? Still, again, still very early Empire at this point. So it's just a weird kind of like. I mean, obviously, Karn is not too keen on the idea. He's very, he seems to be uptight and wants to do his duty. And then back on Ferrix and Andor, well, Cassian Andor goes to the scrapyard to meet his friend Dix, who's played by Adria. Is that Orhani or Orhana? Sorry, from previously from True
Alhani, yeah.
Detective.
It's a Spanish name. So Adria Alhani.
Yeah, and she was previously on True Detective and Six Underground, according to Dom's research, because there's no way I would have been able to tell that. So he tells her he wants to meet her contact. He's got something he wants to sell her because he, at this point, after what happened, seems to want to get the heck out of there. So at this point, I'll hand it back to Dom to continue the story.
Yeah, so just to add on Adria, it's 600 Gram is a Netflix exclusive movie featuring Ryan Reynolds. I highly recommend it. It's an action-packed movie, but yeah, if you want to see some good action, I recommend it to you guys. And then, well, we return in the past and we get our second flashback. The teenagers prepare to go explore the crashed ship. Casa obviously wants to join the search party, and one of the older kids doesn't seem okay with that. But the leader, I'm gonna call it the leader, the lady teenager, which must be the oldest of the village, uh, gives her approval, and they all start applying like a war painting, a little bit like American Native used to do. And then they take off for the exploration. Meanwhile, our good old Deputy Inspector Carnes begins his investigations. He's, for some reason, obsessed with what happened that night, and he decides to disobey his superior orders. And well, episode one ends with a third flashback showing the kids leaving for the expedition, and Casa leaves his sister behind, and we suspect that it's the last time he sees her sister. Well, so far, at least. So that covers the first episode.
Yeah, so I mean, we'd be
So
curious to know what you guys think of the first episode. I mean, if you wanted to leave in the comments or in the chat if you're watching live. I mean, personally, when I watched it, I thought it was a little slow. I mean, obviously that, and I hadn't really watched obviously the two other episodes, but I had Dom tell me, it's part of a story arc, and I guess you get a bit more context as to why they released the three episodes all together. Because I think, having watched episode one, episode two, I think you might have started losing a little bit of the crowd at this point, things saying, oh, nothing really happened to this, but when you watch all three as a whole, and like as I did afterwards, after speaking with Dom, it really added a lot more context. So I
yeah,
actually watched each episode twice, and I much more enjoyed the first episode the second time. So
yeah, I completely understand and support this decision to release all the first three episodes at the same time because I'm almost certain people would have complained of the slow pace as you just mentioned. Uh, it's part of a big picture. It's not the story of the day or the story of the week type of show. There's like a big picture to be uh, taken into account, and we can relate on maybe like Mando. Every episode has its own story inside the big story. So I think that this is not the case for that show, and it's all going to come together as the season goes on. So
and how many episodes, Dom, is Andor again?
for the first season is 12 episodes.
Okay, so it's less. I mean, when you're watching your Mandalorian, and like each episode seems so valuable because there's not many, right? And you're just like, well, this one was a little slow. You're just like, man, you just lost like a sixth or whatever, right? Or however episodes it is. But like now, it's like these episodes, they have time in 12 episodes to develop them a little bit more, develop the characters, and build that context. And from what I saw, I heard someone was saying, they're not a fan of the flashback, but um, on another review or something that I had seen. But I mean, I personally, I like this, and I like the back and forth, and it does come back, this flashback a little later in episode 3 where there's a lot more value to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we can move on to episode 2, or did you have anything else you wanted to add? there's Guillaume that says the first episode definitely does not drop the main storyline that would help the viewer to get addicted, and that's I would completely agree with that, and I think that
Yeah.
that was my first thought. I'm like, well, where's this going? I had seen that preview on Disney Plus as well. I was expecting to see that right off, right out of the gate,
Mm-hmm.
but and again, we don't see that till much further in the episodes, and but again, watching it a second time, I much more appreciated the development to that point that we ended up seeing. So, a much more abbreviated version, obviously, of that scene as well. So episode two.
Yeah.
Let's get that going.
Mm-hmm.
I thought again that one was a little slow. So I mean, it starts off another flashback. They're headed towards the crash site, and they pass by what seems to be like an abandoned mining. I was trying to get some kind of hint as to what it was, if there was like some kind of like Easter egg or something that I can figure out where it was. But visually, it was stunning. I mean, I thought it looked absolutely great.
Yeah, and
Um,
we never got to know what kind of mineral was being mined over
well,
there. So,
yeah, there's like some massive kind of like saw on the top that you see. I
hmm
didn't capture it in the screen, but I mean, I just like the way I caught this with the boy looking over. You could just see the how absolutely massive it was, and again, I'd be curious to know what they were mining there as well.
yeah,
And we shift back to Ferrex. Someone's ringing a bell. I mean, at first, it's funny because I thought it kind of looked like Beskar. But ringing a bell, and I thought at first I'm like, is that some kind of curfew or whatever? But it ends up being obviously the start and end of a shift. I mean, it seems mining or that kind of work that they're doing there is obviously much bigger. I actually thought at one point watching them work, I actually I'm not as familiar with the planets, in terms of the memory off the top of my head, but like it looked like they were destroying ships or like scrapping ships, and I had flashbacks of Fallen Order, right, of that planet. It was a lot less gloomy, but I had that thought come to mind when I was watching that. I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be but obviously ultimately it's not. So we see that guy ringing that bell, um, and then we
and the
shift
way the
to
way he does it, it looks like some sort of a ritual, right?
yeah, yeah.
He he seems to be almost in sort of a meditation while he does his thing. So,
It reminds me of like those big church bells that we have, like especially like the old Montreal. If someone would come out, I felt like he has his timer on. He's got to go out and ring that bell. Like so I was trying to catch what the rhythm was, but there really was nothing. I guess it was because again at first I didn't know if it was trying to tell the time or what was going on, but obviously it's the from what I can hear is that the ringing at the start and the end of their shifts.
yeah, it
Um,
marks the end of the shift and also the end of the day. I
yeah.
would say,
So like that. I don't know if that's like a curfew thing or where everyone has to be in. So I mean, maybe we'll get more info, but I mean, um, Hammer, aka
yeah,
Big Ben. Yeah, that's good.
that could be a good nickname for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. We'll call him Big Ben from now on.
Yeah,
And that guy, I mean, just sidetracking. He looks so passionate about his job, right? Like he's so into it. Like yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Maybe it's the guy overacting, but I thought it looked pretty cool.
yeah,
Um,
and the sound of the bell is like something between two brother bells and a gong.
yeah,
I would say.
yeah. Um, then we go back and we see Bix is about to leave uh, when Tim invites her for dinner. She turns him down. Says they're gonna do something the next day. She looks on her computer or the display, whatever she's looking at, sees a message. Seems concerned and walks away. He he obviously thinks that something's up and goes to look. And this is the first time, and we spoke about this yesterday, that we get something that's kind of like decrypted live, I guess, during the show. Not live, I mean decrypted, like translated um, on the screen. I had never seen that in any of the Star Wars stuff. I mean, it could be wrong, but
I can
basically,
confirm it's the first time. Yeah, for sure,
yeah.
and it's really refreshing.
So we see that there's like some kind of warrant out looking for a Canary Male resident. So looking for questioning. Um, So like we know now at this point that why she's concerned, and he's asking himself some questions at this point. Then we have Cassian goes home where Marva, is that how we're
Yeah,
pronouncing her
Marvel,
name?
yeah.
His adoptive mother, which I mean we obviously find that out later. Her name's Fiona Shaw. She's played in True Blood and Harry Potter, and she knows that he's wanted at this point. And she's hanging out with Dee. That's one thing I thought he was pretty mobile. That guy, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, he can move for a droid. So she knows he's wanted. They start to panic and wonder who else who might know their true identity. Cassian meets with Bix at the bar, and Tim sees them together, and he seems to have some suspicion about the two. I mean, it's kind of vague, and then we see him and go make a call afterwards. I thought I had that screen here. Go and make a call, and what we can only assume he's gonna try and turn him in, and then after that, I guess he's almost got like some insta regret because immediately after, I think we see that Bix goes over to his house, and we see a little bit of a what's headed towards a bit of a love scene, which is something we don't necessarily see in Star Wars lore as well.
True.
So off to you.
Usually there's not much room for romance. Well, such
No.
as explicit as we saw
Yeah.
uh, this time. So it was refreshing as well. I like that.
Yeah.
And then we return to Preox Morlana, the security headquarters, where Karn is preparing his mission to arrest Andor on Ferrix. He meets Sergeant Linus Mosk, who will be his right arm for the mission. And Linus, I don't know who we think he is, but that guy has ideas of grandeur for sure. I mean, he says to Karn that they are the first line of defense of the Empire. I mean, dude, you're a security guard. You're nobody. Who do you think you are? But you know, I like the idea. When you give a little power to someone, I think that you discover their true nature. If they're meant to be a real leader or a coward or a AO, I mean, you'll know for sure. So we obviously see that he has his own agenda, maybe, and he tells everything Karn wants to hear.
Yeah.
So that's I like the character from an outside perspective, but I mean, who do you think he is? I
Yeah.
mean, what do you think of that guy?
It's funny because you get the impression that Karn was the hothead, but then this guy comes in like all super cop and everything like that, and takes it to another level. So
Yeah, for sure. And then, well, we get a flashback. It's our second flashback of the episode, and we see the kids arrive at the crash site, and the leader begins his approach to the ship. It's a really quick flashback. Not too many, not too much to say about that flashback, but the story is progressing on that front too. So that's interesting. And then we see a ship that approaches Ferrix. Uh, it lands just outside the village to avoid detention, and we discover finally that it's Lieutenant Rahel, played by the great Stellan Skarsgård. If I need to tell you in what movie Stellan Skarsgård has played, you really need to check his IMDb for sure because there are so many good movies in which
yeah.
he's been in. Just the MCU to mention that, but there's so much to his career than the MCU that there's a lot of movie that should have a good look at. So check that out in a minute. And then Bix wakes up. I guess the night was short. Uh, and she sees Tim staring at her. And Tim said he had trouble sleeping, which I would have had after he did what he did. And Bix asks if he has some calf ready to drink. And it's the first time that we hear that term in the Star Wars, uh, whether it's a movie or a series, and it's the term that is used to mean coffee.
Yeah.
If you go to Galaxy's Edge and you go to a restaurant over there and you ask for coffee, people will not understand what you're saying, and they will suggest, "Oh, do you mean calf?"
Oh,
And
really?
yes, and they will give you some coffee.
Nice.
So I thought it was a nice Easter egg that was inserted over there. So that's pretty cool.
Locked and loaded. I'm ready to use it now when I go. So
Yeah, you're going in January, so yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you got your first tip. I'll give you some more later on.
Well, coffee's a big one. I'm actually drinking it now, so if I can get coffee there, it's even better. So
Yeah, we'll get to your comments in a few moments, Guillaume, because we're not totally there in our little story, but we're gonna get there. So she asked for a calf, and she asked her if he can open the shop for her. So meanwhile, Cassian is getting ready to meet with Bix, contact, which is Luton, and gives comms to B2MO. That will end up being pretty critical down the line for the episode 3. And Marva searches for the droid because he was supposed to be charging and he's not there. So she wonders where he could be. So
which is a good segue, I guess, into what Guillaume was saying. Is like, so we get the flashback. There's two bodies lying on the ground,
mhm.
both having CIS patches on their uniform. One of them gets up and shoots the leader in the back of I guess, the Canary. Uh, I don't want to say squad, but I guess their
Mhm.
group, and
Yeah,
the kids start blowing these darts. The guy took a lot of darts, though. It's one thing I kept saying. Like, I don't know what kind of poison's in there. I don't know if he was extremely resilient or those darts were weak, but he took a lot. That's one thing I remember thinking when I was watching the episode.
yeah. Maybe
Um,
those darts are more efficient against small mammals, when they hunt,
yeah, yeah,
and
maybe.
that's all they had
Um,
to fight. So
But yeah, I mean, we definitely see that color is something that I had the same question. I mean, I well, not question. I guess the same thought as Guillaume is like. I mean, they were yellow, and I'm like, well, did they land there yellow, or is it the poison? I mean, they had the masks and all this stuff, so I mean, you can only assume that it's the poison or the air or the environment that led them to that. But
yeah,
I
my
mean,
theory is that the kids are immune
yeah,
to whatever was the toxicity in
yeah.
the air, and adults aren't, or especially foreigners. So I think that that's the cause of their death for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. I guess. Yeah. I'd be because I don't remember. Was there a lot of adults? I guess when we're looking at the whole Canary
There are
tribe,
no
or
adults; it's
yeah.
only kids and teenagers,
Huh.
and
So,
all their clothes look too big for them. So
huh.
they salvaged the adult clothing and they adapted it to them. But I
Yeah.
don't think that there are any adults around.
So, back to the present, we learned that Ferrix was abandoned after an Imperial mining disaster. Everyone apparently died. The planet was abandoned and considered toxic. And Cassian books a flight out of the planet. And we move to the Preox. The Malorna security guards are traveling with Ferrix. Um, and Sergeant Mosk briefs the men on the mission. And I mean, this to me is like was hilarious to see. Uh, who is it? Karn, I guess, makes this speech, which is just, and it's funny if we, yeah,
Boring.
if we flash back to when, who was it, Ferrix that made the, sorry, was it Mosk that asked him, if he wanted to come, if he wanted to be part of that mission, and then Karn was like, there was like he said yes, but you could see he wasn't like a super confident yes, and then I get flashes of like David Schwimmer from like Band of Brothers, where this guy is talking, you're just like, man, I don't want to follow. There's a guy, putting his hand to his face, like almost saying like, face palming himself. Like, what is this guy saying? He's trying to make it up on the spot. Obviously, not really instilling much confidence in this guy's leadership, despite the fact that like Monster is trying to, after the thing. Is very inspiring, very great speech, but
Yeah.
let's face it, that was absolutely brutal. Like if I was part of that, I'm like, well, it looks like I'm going there to die at this point. So you're hoping that Moss is gonna take over. Um, so the Luthen takes transport to town as a small talk with another traveler. We see the transport fly through the air. The camera goes down to Andor, who leaves a junkyard, super focused, and it's something that we spoke about yesterday briefly. Like for me, one of the things that I like the most about the series so far is the music, and this was
Yeah.
the first time I had heard, I guess, a standard drum, like a regular drum in any of the music I've ever heard. Like bass drum, cymbals, like all the. It was just, and it was a cool beat. I thought it was edgy, and it added to the mood of that scene of him walking. I thought it was really cool, but obviously Tony Gilroy is not afraid to try to experiment with the music. It's completely different than what
Hmm.
we've seen in so far, and the Mandalorian, of course, just took it another direction. I guess more of a play off the traditional Star Wars music,
Yeah.
but this is it's hip. I find it's much more modern with what we're used to seeing so far. So
And I
um,
tell you, it fitted the situation pretty well. It
yeah,
served the story pretty good. So
yeah.
the guy is preparing himself to embark on the maybe the most dangerous mission he ever had, and he needs some music to get himself pumped. I know he doesn't hear it, but
He didn't have his AirPod Pros in his
no,
ears, but like
no.
I guess he's going to the gym and gonna get ripped there. Um, so yeah, yeah. I just put the screen there. I mean, for me, that was definitely one of those kind of like John Wick kind of moments, walking
Yeah,
towards the screen. Like with such
on the Brooklyn Bridge,
determination.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
So really like that. Um, and if we move now, I think we can go on to episode 3 again. Don't be afraid to let us know what you think of episode 2. And just a reminder to like and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. And we can move on to episode 3 unless there's anything you want to add, Dom. Or
Well, maybe other than the fact that we see a little crescendo happening with the episode. First one really quiet, really relaxed. We meet the character for the first time, and then episode 2, we get our first shots fired with the kids in the flashback. And speaking of that, the two members of the crew of the crashed ship, sorry,
yeah,
uh, were wearing CIS patches. CIS standing for Confederacy of Independent System. So they were separatists during the Clone Wars. So
hmm,
that's the logo. So that's why in episode 3, I'm cheating now, but Marva and her husband are talking that a Republic ship is coming to salvage the pieces.
yeah,
So it's like the enemy ship is coming to get the goods from that cargo. So that's why there's a sense of urgency and why they need to remove all the stuff they feel they need to take before leaving. So
nice.
that would be it. But speaking of those flashbacks, we see Casa deciding to explore the ship. He enters inside, and I guess he sees his reflection for the very first time. I don't know if he is disappointed, but he decides to crush all reflecting surfaces. You see it later on in more flashbacks, but he's destroying everything. So that covers the first flashback of episode 3. But then we see Cassian uh, going to see his good friend Brasso and gives him his farewell. He tells him he has to leave. He wants him to watch over his mother, making sure that everything is okay with her. And then Luton arrives at the Ferrex terminal, and he walks to town and meet Bix. So, as the picture we're seeing right now, she tells him where the meeting will take place and warns him that the security guards are coming. So there's
What
already a sense of urgency installed right away from the get go.
Brasso is actually, we didn't really talk about him earlier, but he's definitely a cool character that I found. I like the way he's helping Cassian and his creativity when they're trying to make up a story and all that stuff. Like he seems very empathetic or sympathetic to Cassian, and realizing that he's a little troubled, but doesn't mean really any harm. Just a quick flashback. Guillaume is saying episode 2 raised many questions about uh, Andor's birth planet, and he fears that we might not get too many answers. I guess maybe fearing that past this episode 3 or whatnot, like that are we moving away from these flashbacks?
Mhm.
I have a feeling we'll be sticking to them a little bit more. I think there's a lot more to come, but yeah, I think that like you said, his birth planet. I mean, we'll get to it at the end of this episode, but it doesn't seem like there's any reason to really go back there unless they're going to talk a bit more about the sister, which hopefully we eventually see. But yeah, continue on, Dom, for what happened next.
Well, then there's a flashback, which I already talked about, where we see Kessa destroying everything, and the three of them, I mean, Marva, her husband, and Kessa, they make first contact. So we switch back to the present time, and Cassian is waiting for Luther at the rendezvous point. The security guards land, and they take their position. Musk coordinates everything because Karn is just unable to lead, I guess.
David Schwimmer and Band of Brothers. And that's all I think about. So
Yeah, for sure. And uh, we immediately go back in the past where Kessa is afraid of Marva. Obviously, he doesn't know her, so and they don't even speak the same language. They speak basic. He speaks Canary, and we'll talk about that later because you told me something yesterday, Eric. You thought that it was pretty cool that we never got the translation for what was being said in Canary.
yeah,
So
definitely something that came to mind, and I was telling Dom that I I actually turned on my subtitles, thinking maybe if there's something wrong with my settings, and then when I read the subtitles, I put them in English and it wrote Canary, speaking in Canary or something like that. So
yeah,
we're really not meant to know what they're saying. So coincidentally, we're getting translations of something on the screen, but nothing in Canary. So I'm curious to know if that's going to lead to anything further down the line.
yeah,
Um,
and she wants to take Casa with her. Her husband is not so keen to the idea, but as Casa tries to escape, she injects him with something, and
some
he falls asleep.
tranquilizer, yeah, of some
Yeah,
sort.
something like
And
that. So, and well, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
so after that, we see the guards show up at Mavar's door. They barge in like they own the place, start rummaging through everything. I mean, at this point, obviously they know who Cashin is. They're looking for him. I mean, they know that she's obviously hiding something, and coincidentally, there was like a comm that Cassin had given to B to communicate with, and he happens to communicate with them right when they're in there, so they know
Mhm.
where he is. They're trying to get that information out of her. Luthen arrives at the RV. They both seem wary of each other. Meanwhile, Vix discovers that Tim obviously is the one that ratted out Cassian. She's trying to rush out to warn Cassian and Luthen at the hangar, but uh, Luthen reveals to Cassian that he is more. Oh, yes, that's the face to face. This is one of the scenes of where, what if you've seen the little, I guess, sneak peek. It leads into what we saw finally. What was the whole build up towards this? Obviously, a much more extended scene.
Mhm.
So where Luthen and Cassian are facing off against each other. So the reluctance you have Cassian. It was like um, he was there to sell something, but we find out that Luthen is much more interested in Cassian himself than what he had to offer. Um,
Yeah, Cassidy is all business. And Luton is like, hey, let's take it easy. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other, you know?
Yeah, well, Cassian's obviously trying to get the heck out of Dodge, and trying to make some money along the way, trying to get a little bit more security. But that obviously, we find out that Luthen had something up his sleeve the whole time. Um, so I'm going to come back to these scenes, but we have another at the village. People seem to unite, and they start banging on the door. So that I'm reluctant to get too much into detail with this. Like, it's such a great, what do you call it, 15 to 20 minutes of, like, I
Yeah.
would say 15 minutes of back and forth. Again, back to the music was incredible. Um, you could see the town, the townsmen and like the population, the village people are gathering together. They have like this little drumming that they do against like a signal, I guess. That the guards are there.
It sounded like a Morse code, but
Yeah,
the security guards don't even get it. You know, they're just saying that they're trying to intimidate us and stuff like that.
yeah,
But
and it was crazy because um, obviously like kind of someone hints at, like, because it gets overwhelming that the sound is everywhere, surrounded by it, and at one point it just stops, and it's just
and it's Marva who's trying to scare the two remaining guards in her house.
yeah,
And they're saying you don't have to worry about the sound. You have to worry about when it stops.
yeah,
That's when you need to start being afraid, you know?
yeah.
So
So we'll go to Guillaume. It says, yeah, we can guess what they were saying. Yeah, going back to what the canary language was. Am I the only problem when expecting something bigger when the drumming finally stopped? Yeah, so I don't know what I guess I would have expected. I guess the S was going down. You knew something was going to happen, but I think it plays on the intimidation, right? Like, all of a
yeah.
sudden, you know, there was this noise going on, and it just stops. And now that's when you really start asking a question, like, why did they stop? Why are they doing this? Makes them re-question their strategy or whatnot.
Mhm.
So a lot
And
of
it coincides to the moment where the starship, the little starship, the dropship, crashes in the huge crane, and they say, well, if they were there, they would be behind us. And now they start to worry about their positioning, all their tactics.
yeah,
It gets inside their head.
total mind games. You see the
Yeah.
village come together to help each other out. In some cases, not even know why, but they just know that they're against these guards. A lot of back and forth going on. Really, a very busy scene. We get Bix who gets captured, gets injured, and Tim at this point realizes the mistake he's made and realizes he's hurt her. Uh, Sympathetic to the situation, he tries to rescue her, and obviously ends up perishing in his efforts. Then we have Cassian and Luther who escape the hangar. They put an explosive in the speeder as a decoy, and then they end up leaving on a speeder bike. And it was fun to hear that kind of classic sound
Yeah.
of the speeder. And obviously, like, one of my, to continue on this, Karn, I guess maybe his frail, I guess, sense of security or whatever. You could see I just put the picture up there, like the stunned look on his face when he realized he's failed. And I'm wondering at this point is like, well, he disobeyed orders and didn't end up catching. Like, you can disobey the orders and then capturing the guy who you were told not to go after in the first place, but now he's just caused a complete mess and made them look bad in the process. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering where that's going to go. But so I mean, I don't know if we're going to go as far as, like, I guess we might as well at this point. But, like, you know, again, the music's playing. It's building up. It goes flashback here and there. You see Cassian as a kid, on the ship, being taken away from his Canary tribe, and wondering what's going on. He's obviously never been in a spaceship of any sort before. He's looking out at the light, at the sun, and then it's flashing back to Cassian as well on his ship with Luthen and I had a flash, and I told you yesterday, Dom. I mean, even earlier we were talking about it, how
Mhm.
it's like it started that way, right? Like, so Cassian is leaving on this ship as a child, and he gets that flash again when he's older. He's realizing the kind of like the similarity between that looking out in the light on that ship. And for me, maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it, but I had a flash forward to the end of Rogue One, where that's where he ultimately dies, looking out at this big light coming at him.
Yeah.
So is it was kind of emotional as well to watch all that build up, but that was a great, obviously, like, again, a great wrap up of those 3 episodes for me. So
Yeah, definitely. And if you can go back one picture behind, where we have the empty streets, uh, and the guards are waiting for the for Andor and Luton to come out.
yeah,
I mean, that's your typical Western spaghetti picture.
yeah,
Empty streets. We're waiting for the showdown to happen, and then the speeder comes out, and oh, the shooting begins, and that's the real moment where we get the the action packed finale we wanted to see. So
yeah,
that's we all know where the inspirations for Star Wars are coming from. So that's a good moment. And I don't know if you noticed, but Luton whistles to his ship
yeah,
to open the ramp and everything to prepare for takeoff. That's the first time we ever see that in Star Wars as well. I thought it was pretty neat, just like a cowboy would whistle to his horse
yeah.
to having come
It's so
by and
true.
let's go. And now he whistles to his ship and they take off. We're looking at the sunset like a good old Western movie. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, I mean, I remember hearing the whistle. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, so he's got like some kind of like Alexa, I guess, on his ship or whatever. But like, it was, yeah, it's a great comparison you made there with the whistling to the horse. Yeah, definitely a cool comparison there. So that's
So
about it. I mean, I don't know what everyone thought, about the episodes itself, the story arc. I mean, for me, I thought that it was wrapped up really well, with the third episode. Um,
yeah,
it really
I
closed the story arc, and really gave you more of a satisfying end. Especially like the 2 first episodes, they end on a little bit of a dry note,
mhm.
except for like that, I guess, like that John Wick walk of episode 2. But I find it really wrapped everything up really well and got you excited for what's to come next, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't wait for next week. I wanted, and I know for sure that we're going to see Mon Mothma this week. So that's something that I wanted to see for a long time as well. And I can't wait to see the other side. The politics that will be involved in everything. And with everything that happened on Ferrix, now we understand why the Empire will be interested in implementing themselves over there, just to make sure that there are no insurgency and stuff like that. So we're going to finally see perhaps the ISB get in. We saw a woman. She's going to be called Deidre in this episode. She works for the ISB, and apparently she's very ambitious as well. Perhaps she will clash with Karn, and maybe they will join forces for the arrest of Andor. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's all speculation right now, but it's. I'm thrilled, to be honest.
Guillaume says it was a good introduction, but I hope we get into the Rebel action after that. And for me personally, I mean, Guillaume's rooting for Rebels, and me being the bad guy, I guess, from 501st. I want to see Stormtroopers. Bring out the Stormtroopers.
Why not? Yeah,
I'm happy.
we
I mean, I'm happy with what we have so far, but I mean, I'm looking forward to the Empire presence, and seeing some of that, and see what surprises lay ahead. So
yeah, and we saw Death Troopers as well. So
yeah, yeah, there's a lot to get excited about, and to think that we've only seen 3 episodes, and another 9 to come. And is there 2 series, if I remember well, that there is it gonna be?
there's going to be 2 seasons. Yeah,
Yeah,
season one is will be all the events will be happening 5 years BBY, and then for season two, it's gonna be split in four, three arcs episode, 3 episode arcs. So the first 3 episodes of season two will be 4 years BBY, then 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year leading up to the Rogue One movie. So perhaps during the last 3 episodes, we're going to see Tivik, which we saw at the beginning of Rogue One, and when he ends up being shot by Andor. So uh, that will be a good build up towards the movie, but we
And
don't know much.
Guillaume brings
Uh,
up a good point, though. I mean, in the trailers, we do see clone troopers as well, right? So
yeah, we saw them in the trailer.
I'm
So
not sure what the timing is in terms of that. I mean, I guess we can go back to flashbacks. I guess probably the further
that's my
development
guess.
of
Hmm.
Cassian, right? Like, with like, his upbringing, I guess probably learning the language and maybe some of the encounters he has with them. Something that's obviously, built some of the anger or resentment that he has. So, I'm definitely looking forward to see more clone troopers and more real action clone troopers in the episodes to come. So it's a great
Yeah,
point.
because Canary used to be a separatist planet. So that would explain why clone troopers would arrive on Canary and eventually take control, which would, I guess, would happen after the end of the Clone Wars, in
It's
the
the
days
timing
or
of
weeks.
Cassian though as a child, right? I guess I didn't
It
really
would fit.
look into it, but yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess it would fit. So maybe the flashbacks will make Cassian maybe older. Maybe the next flashback will be 3 years after he was taken by Marva.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know that.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the development and any kind of arms training or whatnot that he might have had or anything. So obviously,
Yeah,
Marva seems to be pretty accustomed to it. So
and seeing clone troopers in live action, we never got to see a lot of clone troopers. I mean, real clone troopers. For episode 2 and 3, they were CGI. So we only saw clone troopers uh, in live action in the Obi-Wan
yeah,
series. So that was the very first time they really built the armors for the props department. So
I know it's built a little bit of a, uh, I guess some discussion within the 501st Legion because I mean, from that aspect, I know that the costumes are slightly different than what they based them off of the previous I guess episode
mm,
2 and 3 and the animation and whatnot. So I mean, I know that they've noticed some differences, but I think I could be wrong, but I think I remember hearing some of the members saying how the way that their costumes are built are made a little bit more better for them to move around. The same way that if you look at the regular stormtroopers, New Hope stormtroopers, and what they call TKs, um,
mhm.
when you look at their more recent rendition of their uniforms, my personal costume is built off the New Hope, and tend to walk like RoboCop wherever you're going. But these new ones are obviously a lot more. They offer a lot more mobility than what we have in the past. So
That's true. Yeah, and Guillaume is saying, maybe we will see him, that being Cassian, learn scavenging or thieves abilities.
yeah,
So that would be cool. Maybe he's going to try to steal some, I don't know, clone armors or clone weaponry.
yeah,
So that
uh,
would be a good introduction to his set of skills that he already has when we see him as a grown up.
right.
So,
So I mean
uh,
that was pretty much the first 3 episodes. I'm really excited about what's coming up next. I don't know if you have anything to add, Dom, but I mean, I don't know if you want to get into what's coming up next on your channel aside from, the show, or further episodes. I know you have some more
yeah, well,
reviews.
before we get there, I just want to say that if you could summarize the first 3 episodes, I would do it by saying that small actions can lead to big consequences. Let
Yeah,
me explain that. So, first, we see a an accidental shooting That add that to an overzealous security guard, and add that to that a jealous boyfriend, and we have the perfect recipe to change everything in Cassian's life.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
those events will be the turning point to and will lead Cassian to become the man we know in the Rogue One movie.
yeah, and especially I mean his meeting Jin, I guess, is also another you know I guess a more, I don't want to say fatal end to him, but like change it to another big event for him, right? Like I mean, came in very reluctant on a mission, and next thing you know, he's one of the
Willing to
biggest,
die for the
yeah,
cause.
one of the biggest turning points for us to have, I guess, the movies that or the storyline that we see in the movies afterwards. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, for sure.
And let's not forget that we're gonna see Saw Gerrera at some point.
Yeah,
That would be awesome to see Forrest Whitaker back in this role.
yeah,
So
for sure.
that's great. So all right. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Hopefully, you'll be there next week. We'll obviously discuss episode 4. We'll try to make some comparisons to real life politics if we can. We'll make sure to find some cool Easter eggs for you guys next week. This week it was just too much to prepare, but we're going to discuss some Easter eggs we saw in the first 3 episodes, and if we see some Easter eggs in the episode 4, we'll make sure that we tell you guys what we've found. Tomorrow will be the tomorrow's review will be the Babu Frick animatronic figure that is sold exclusively at both Galaxy's Edge parks. So you guys don't want to miss this. This toy is absolutely amazing. To me, it's pretty comparable to the Grogu animatronic Hasbro has made about a year or two ago. So
I
it's
haven't seen
absolutely
anything of it,
adorable.
so I mean that's one of your. I'm definitely curious to see it, and maybe even
Yeah,
this
I've kept it
weekend.
under wraps for since I got it. So I wanted to give you guys the surprise to see that. What else? Uh, Hopefully you'll be there next week. And anything else to add on your side, Eric?
No, I mean, again, like and subscribe whether you're watching live or if you're
Mhm.
watching, the replay on YouTube. If you like what you're watching, you want more of it, then let us know. We're definitely having a lot of fun, and for me, it's making my experience a lot different than what I've had in the past, where I can just watch it. Now I get to learn some more names and rely on Dom to teach me a little bit more about the whole Star Wars universe. So definitely having fun on my end. I hope you are as well.
All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, 8:30.